Studies KDU to introduce the chairperson of this session. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Vice Chancellor, I welcome you all back to the afternoon segment of the KDU International Research Conference 2018 Defense and Strategic Studies Plenary Session 2 on the theme Securing Professional Excellence Through Collaboration, Military Stakeholders' Approach to Security. It is my pleasure to introduce the chairperson of the session, Professor Nayani Melegoda, Senior Professor in International Relations, Dean Faculty of Graduate Studies, University of Colombo, to the audience. Currently, she is the Dean Faculty of Graduate Studies, University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. She is also a member of the Task Force on Freedom of Navigation in the Indian Ocean, chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Lanka. She is a member of the Board of Management of Lakshman Kadiragama Institute for International Relations and Strategic Studies. Distinguished Fellow, the Institute of National Security of Sri Lanka, Ministry of Defense, Affiliated Researcher, Institute of Peace Science, Hiroshima University, Japan, and Country Expert, Sri Lanka, Variety of Democratic Projects, Local Knowledge, University of Gothenburg, Sweden, since 2015. She is a contributor to the Mahavansa Volume 6, the official record of Sri Lanka on foreign policy of Sri Lanka. Whilst thanking her being here with us today, accepting our invitation, I now cordially invite Professor Nayani Melegoda to the stage and chair the Defense and Strategic Studies Plenary Session 2. Meantime, I would like to call upon our eminent guest speakers in this plenary. Professor Young Ho Kim, Director General Research Institute for National Security Affairs, Korea National Defense University, Korea. Air Vice Marshal Dr. Tatan Kustana, Vice Rector 3, Cooperation and Inter-Agencies Relations, Indonesia Defense University, Indonesia. Professor Gavini Kiravell, Executive Director, Regional Center for Strategic Studies. Brigadier General Hamid Shafiq, Director General of Operations and Training, Integrated Headquarters, Maldives National Defense Force, and Deputy Director General of National Counter-Terrorism Center, Maldives. Major General Dato Abdul Rahim bin Haj Mohammed Yusuf, first holder of the Leadership Chair Office, National Defense University, Malaysia. Professor Nayani Melegoda will also introduce the presenters of the session to the audience. Madam, over to you.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. It is indeed a pleasure to chair this plenary session 2 on Defense and Strategic Studies at the General Surgery Kotalawala Defense University's 11th International Research Conference on Security Professional Excellence Through Collaboration, Military Stakeholders' Approach to Security. Now, security is an academic branch in international relations coming under strategic studies, and strategic studies is very important, but the definitions of strategic studies and security studies sometimes overlap each other. Richard K. Betts defines strategic studies exemplified by 3 concentric circles. Military science, that is combining technologies, organizations, and tactics to win battles, in the center. An outer circle represents security studies. Everything related to security of the entire society, national as well as human security, as researched extensively by many researchers, including Barry Busan, David Baldwin, Richard K. Betts, etc. In the middle or in between strategic studies, which is mutual interaction of political goals and military assets influenced by social, economic, and other limitations. Now, Betts points out, since strategic studies are in the middle circle, that this should become the most important sub-branch of international relations. The position of strategic studies depends on the definitions of security. As students of defense and security studies, I'm very sure most of you are aware of the Penguin International Dictionary on International Relations, the security definition of security, a term which denotes the absence of threats and scarce values. Now, there are so many other definitions, but I found that the Russian Federation rules of law related to security is a good definition, where the term security is defined as defense of the vital interest of individuals, society, and state from internal and external threats. Then the vital interests are also defined as the totality of needs which enable existence and ensure the progressive development of individuals, society, and the state. So, without taking much time, we have 5 presentations addressing security, defense, military, and strategic studies this afternoon. Let me now introduce the first presenter in this session. The first presenter, please excuse me if I mispronounce, I'll try to pronounce it as accurately as I can, is Director General, Research Institute for National Security Affairs, Korean National Defense University, Korea, which is called KNDU, Young Ho Kim. He is also a professor at the Department of International Relations at KNDU. His major areas of teaching and research interest include foreign policy and security affairs of Northeast Asia. Also, Republic of Korea, US relations, and international security issues. Professor Kim has received his PhD and MA in political science from the Ohio State University in USA and his BA from the Department of Political Science and Diplomacy at Yonsei University, Seoul, Korea. Prior joining the KNDU, Professor Kim worked as a postdoctoral researcher at the Merchant Center for Education in National Security in Ohio, USA, and as an instructor at the Department of Political Science of OSU. He also worked as a research professor at the Research Institute of Unification Studies in Yonsei University. He served as the Deputy Secretary to the President for Security Strategy in Korea, and also as Policy Advisor to the Chief Secretary to the President for Foreign Policy and Security. He was a visiting research fellow at Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore. Professor Young Ho Kim will make his presentation on reconciliation between two Koreas, process and prospect. Professor Young, you have 15 minutes to make your presentation. Please.
Thank you. Can I just go there?
Sorry.
Can I go there?
Sorry. Please go.
Thank you, Chair. As introduced, I'm a Professor Young Ho Kim at the Korean National Defense University. I'm really glad and honored to be here and also to be part of this distinguished panel today on this important subject matters. But frankly speaking, I think this subject about Northeast Asia, especially the North Korean nuclear problems, is somewhat kind of feel distinct from your concerns, immediate concerns. So maybe it's not that serious to you, feel not that serious to you, some of you, but it is very important to us. And also I would like to emphasize it's not just a matter of security for our neighbor, but it's also whole region of the Asia and also the Indo-Pacific area, if not the global. So I hope you pay attention to my presentation. It's not that fantastic one, but I hope and also you can learn from my presentation a little bit. Okay, let me start. Actually, where should I shoot? Here or there? It's not moving. Okay, it's not moving. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Okay, it always happens. The computers. I don't think this is a smart one, but people always assume this is a smart one. But usually it's not that smart, especially when it's needed to. So that's why actually I usually still depend upon writing in my handwriting. But these days I cannot avoid using this fancy technology. So I'm moving on. Okay. So as you can see in the table of contents, I will actually briefly present the snapshot history of the inter-Korean relations very briefly, and then the current historic situation of the transformation from the armistice system to the more permanent peace system in Korean Peninsula. And then third, our current President Moon, his administration's policy to North Korea. And then lastly, I will mention about the future outlook of the ongoing process of the denuclearization and also the reconciliation of the Korean Peninsula. Okay, but given the limited time, I don't want to dwell on the past. So this is a very brief history of the inter-Korean relations. It all started with incomplete independence. By incomplete independence, I mean it's not done by our power. Korean power. It's done. It was actually an outcome of the end of the Second World War, especially with Japan. So for the military expediency, the Soviet Union and the United States came to the Korean Peninsula to disarm Japanese imperial armies. So they divided our Korean Peninsula into two parts. So northern part, it was a job for the Soviet Union. The southern part, it's a job for the job was assigned to the United States. That's how it started. So that's why all dynamics of the division, confrontation, and also the reconciliation process is depending upon the outside dynamics, security, diplomatic, economic dynamics of the outside world. So it's not just on our own to decide these matters that concern this one. Okay, and then unfortunately, this kind of externally imposed division and confrontation actually was internalized by Koreans, participating actually as a main party to the Korean War. So that's actually, during that war, they committed many atrocities and violence. So due to that kind of violence and atrocities, personal and emotional antagonism against each other was actually deeply rooted in our mind. So it hinders the reconciliation process more difficult. So, and then after that, during almost the 40 years of the division, in that period, the two regimes in each side actually kind of competed vehemently. So it exacerbated our relationship more badly. So that's actually that kind of antagonism and confrontation and competition lasted until the end of Cold War. It was a time, the end of Cold War, after the end of Cold War, the position, posture, and also even actually mindset toward each other has changed, started to change. So at the end of the war, after the end of the war, I'm sorry, because of mainly the economic power by South Korea, we tend to be more lenient and more engaging and more actually kind of permissive and more generous to North Korea. But on the other hand, North Koreans felt completely differently, completely opposite side, went opposite side. They felt very threatened, nervous, and so very defensive. So they actually kind of tried to focus on increasing their military power, especially with the asymmetric military capabilities, like attacking submarines, special forces, and also nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. That's how it all started. I mean, how this kind of recent tensions in our peninsula and also the region has started because of that reason. Okay, and then let me start with talking about this current situation. As you can see, this is actually the historic things going on on and around our peninsula. We can point to at least two things. We have two summit meetings in April and May. So as you can see the pictures, these are the first one is actually it's a kind of demarcation line between South and North Korea. There is the house for the negotiation called Panmunjom. The building behind these two leaders, the blue buildings, that's the small building. It's inside there. There is the tables for the negotiation for each side, both sides. So actually, only in this in this building, actually we can cross this the line. But outside the building, we cannot cross this line. So the South Korean President Moon Jae-in and the North Korean Chairman Kim Jong-un approached to each other and then shaking hands, and then Kim Jong-un actually crossed over to the south for the first summit meeting. And then he come down to the outside, and we have another building for the negotiation and also the interactions. So they went into that building, and that's the second picture shows the inside building. And they met and shaking hands. And then next to this blue colored building, so-called now it became very famous. It's a blue bridge. In the bridge, they actually, without any, attendance of any other his aides, both aides, when they actually talk to each other, frankly, about an hour. So it's kind of a historic site in the picture. And this is second one. It happened in May. This time it's our president went over to the north side, northern part, and they crossed the line, and then went over to the northern side, and then there is another building for North Koreans. So actually he went into the inside and they had a meeting. After the meeting, they actually kind of hugging each other. The second important thing, it was an also historic thing, was the U.S. DPRK Singapore summit meeting, right? As you all imagine. President Trump and Kim Jong-un, they met together. But these kind of historic events didn't happen at once or without any kind of background approach. It actually started with the President Moon, his inauguration. He was inaugurated in May 2017, last year. So just right after his inauguration, he actually visited Berlin, and then after he announced his plan for the kind of the improvement of the inter-Korean relations. So that we called it Berlin Initiatives. It basically emphasized the coexistence and co-prosperity and the peaceful ways of the solution of the North Korean nuclear programs. And then North Korean side, actually with all those numerous tests, after his kind of taking power, Chairman Kim Jong-un actually announced last year, November 29th, he announced that finally we reached to the point that we can, we succeeded in everything in the developing those nuclear weapons. So after that, he started to change his actually kind of policy lines, moving toward more like, emphasizing economic development. So early this year, the first day, New Year's Day, he announced that I will focus more on the economic development. And then he also mentioned about the improvement in the Korean relations. That was the moment, actually kind of some move actually it underwent actually this whole process. And then timely event was the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games. In that games, it was a natural kind of the setting. They can actually get together and we can get together and talk to each other and interact with each other and have better relationships. It all happens, and then after special attack, special envoys, we had went to the North Korea, and North Koreans came down to the south, and then they met together. This is the pictures. So just it's the first one. The North Koreans came down. The lady here is the Kim Jong-un's sister, actually. So the own sister, the only sister. So she's a very important person. And then the second one is our team went up to the North Korea and met the Chairman Kim Jong-un, and they actually, this picture is, he's the actually director of our security advisor, special advisor to the security advisor to the president, Jung Yong. Okay, how did it happen? This is important part. I think this is 4 factors. Why this is important? Because these 4 factors continuously affect the future dynamics of this current process of the denuclearization and also the reconciliation. So I actually identified 4 things. First one, it was a growing effect of the international sanctions. It's the united front of sanctions by all international communities. All international community, including China, it actually started to take bite. It's not painful yet, but it's not agonizingly painful yet, but it started to bite. And so within maybe 5 or 6 years later, it's going to be really problematic to North Korean economy, which will lead to some kind of uprising among the people, possibly. It's not that easily done in a country like in Korea, it's North Korea, but considering the economic situation in North Korea, it can happen. So that's one thing. The second thing is demonstration of the US military forces, and also the unpredictability of, as you all know, the President Trump. So his unconventional style of the decision making, and also his kind of something like pushing tactic of negotiation, blunt actually negotiating tactic. Actually, it worked. So that's because it made the North Koreans scary. Actually, it's not just demonstration. Maybe Trump will use it. That kind of worry actually made them come to the table. Third factor is the facilitating role of the Moon, President Moon, and also his administration. So he is a very sincere person, even though in our country, in South Korea, opposition leaders, even though they are opposed to the current Moon Jae-in administration policy, but they like Moon Jae-in as a person. He's a very sincere person, and he's a real gentleman. So everybody respects that. And so I think that kind of character actually helps both Kim Jong-un and also the President Trump think when they think about the negotiation and the sincerity of the kind of proposals or suggestions by the Moon Jae-in. And then fourth one is finally, I think this is the most important thing, the Chairman Kim's actually decision. This is a very controversial part. Still many people actually wondering whether Chairman Kim Jong-un made a strategic decision to give it up, all his nuclear weapons and ICBMs. Well, it depends, but I think he made it. Why? Because I don't think he's a newborn person. Suddenly he became a nice, kind person. No, I don't think so. He's very smart and very well articulated man. He's very clever. So he knows how to handle the power, how to consolidate his power. So if, as I said earlier, if sanction continuously, he's going to be in trouble. And also another thing is that he also had strong confidence. Okay, sorry. In making his own nuclear weapons. So that's because, and so actually he decided to take a risk or take a gamble. Okay, this is the third part is the Moon defense policy. I don't want to explain. Actually, you can see this one from the actually handouts later. So what's going to happen Actually, many things is going on right now. Actually, we achieved some actually important things, especially the hotlines, the communication channels, we restored it, and also some exchanges is going on already, it started. But the problem is, first one is sanction. We cannot go actually kind of, more aggressively about the exchanges and the interaction with North Korea, between the two Koreas. Because of international sanctions prevent us from actually invest even, the money in the infrastructure development or some kind of, that kind of, we cannot send any kind of help, material help directly to North Korea. That's the first level. The more important thing is actually different view on the relationship among three things I mentioned here. Actually, there are three important goals in this process. Denuclearization, first one. Second one is improvement in Korean relations. Third one is peace process on the Korean Peninsula. So all these three has to very close, actually interlocking relations. So that is actually most Americans and some conservatives in South Korea, they want to see first denuclearization by, some move for the denuclearization by North Korea first. It's kind of sequential review. But our current administration and North Koreans, some people in South Korea who actually rooting for this kind of improvement of inter-Korean relations, they emphasize we have to do it together, simultaneously. That's a big difference in view. So that's the main hurdle right now. So, but actually it's the whole process is mainly actually moved by the top leaders, that positive side. So we can still have a hope, okay? So that's the thing. And then the main direction, I think the main key is still mistrust among all parties. So how can we start to build gradually, at least slowly but gradually, this kind of building the confidence or trust for each other? That's the key. So we better find out the way to do it. So I think that's maybe, as I said, sanctions prevent us from pursuing more the intentions in the economic area or the other areas, but military area, we can do it. So maybe CBM, that's confidence building measures, and also some kind of arms control, the negotiation can be very helpful for the near future. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Air Vice Marshal Dr. Tatan Kustana. Dr. Kustana is he is the Vice Rector 3 for Inter-Institutional Cooperation, Indonesian Defense University. This university is under the supervision of the President of the Republic of Indonesia, mandated to the Ministry of Defense. Air Vice Marshal Dr. Tatan Kustana graduated from the Air Force Academy in 1984 and reached the rank of Air Vice Marshal in 2018. In addition, he holds a doctorate on human resource management from the Jakarta National University and a Master of Business from RMIT, University of Melbourne, Australia. He also has a second Master of Arts from the Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia. In addition, he had undergone many advanced training courses in Australia, and he is a lecturer of defense management at the Inter-Institutional Cooperation Indonesian Defense University. He is also a holder of many medals for his contribution to the Indonesian Air Force, Indonesian Armed Forces, and to the Ministry of Defense, and he was awarded many medals from the government of Indonesia. Air Vice Marshal Dr. Tatan Kustana will present on the role of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika in strengthening security system in Indonesia and the challenges in the future. The floor is yours. Dr. Kustana, 15 minutes, please.
Okay. Just leave it. Thank you very much. Mrs. Chairperson, distinguished delegation, ladies and gentlemen. This is such an honor and also good moment and best opportunity to me to stand up here, not just stand up, but to do presentation. And also, I would like to thank to KDU for inviting me, because it's the first time for me to come to Sri Lanka, really. It's the first time, so I really, I'm really glad to come to Sri Lanka. Okay, before presenting my presentation about the role of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, or the role of unity in diversity to strengthening security system in Indonesia and the challenges in the future, I would like to a little bit introduce about my institution. Indonesian Defense University just established 9 years ago, so it's very, very young. Indonesian Defense University is like a melting pot, because the students come from both civilian and military, but most of them are civilian. So 70 or 75% are civilian, and 20% or something, 30% is pro-military. So it's a little bit unique, and I think we are very glad, because so many civilian now very, very interested in learning or studying about defense. That's a little bit about Indonesian Defense University. Okay then, let me start. Indonesia is the largest archipelagic country in the world, and consists 17,508 islands. See, it's very, very, very big. And also, Indonesian people consist of 100 of ethnic, and we are now estimated to have population about 260 million. So it's the 4th largest population in the world, under China, India, USA. And also, Indonesia has about 500 ethnic groups all over Indonesia. So you can imagine it is hard to control, but the previous presenter said it's hard to control, but maybe we can manage. So we try, I mean, Indonesian government try to manage this such thing. And Indonesia also is home of the largest number of Muslims in the world. Around 90% in Indonesia are Muslim. 7% is maybe Christian or Protestant, and the rest is 30% like Hinduism or Buddhism. So diversity in Indonesia is really, really hard to manage. But we had a motto we call Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. What is the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika? Mean unity in diversity. What is the essence of unity or in diversity, or unity or essence of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika? Is tolerance from all differences. That's the main key. So Bhinneka Tunggal Ika mean is we have to be tolerant to all the differences. So that's like a bound or glue for Indonesian to be united. I try to a little bit explain about the history of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. The motto of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika is known for the first time in the Majapahit king or era, that's 700 years ago. That motto meaning diversity in religion. But now we believe diversity of belief, religion developed in Majapahit kingdom is still applicated to Indonesia now. Just leave it? Yeah, that's okay. The concept of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika in strengthening the security system is not to implement the hard power or also soft power, but we try to implement what we call smart power. What is the smart power mean? Smart power means combining of hard power and soft power. When Indonesian government apply hard power, if the threat like terrorism, separatism, or something is similar to that. And soft power is like giving them a socialization to all Indonesian people that we are different, but we still the ones. That's the essence of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Okay, I would like to give example the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika apply to Indonesian people. I give example is two region. One is Natuna. Hang on. Here, okay, Natuna. You know, Natuna is part of Indonesia. Is far away from the government center. It's close to part of Sumatra, but it's close to Aceh. In that region, the harmony is very, very good. Even though they are different religion, they have different ethnics, but still they are very, very good in relation and very good in doing social there. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika is not sectarian exclusive for Natuna people, and they have like a commitment to defend Indonesia as a one unitary, that in Natuna. And also another thing is in Karimun Jawa. Karimun Jawa is formed through the migration process. Karimun Jawa Island is located between Java and Kalimantan Island. So it is possible that Karimun Jawa is used as stopover by the trader. Tribe diversity in Karimun Jawa is a cultural condition that, if do not managed properly, can disrupt the process of social cohesiveness and community integration as a foundation for the creation of national integration. But in there, we can see they are living very harmonious, they respect each other, and then they implement the values of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Even though they have different tribe and cultural background, but they can realize a great social relation. They saw that the society in Karimun Jawa has a high social awareness and openness to accept differences. In other words, they have been able to accentuate multiculturalism in their life. That's an example how in Bhinneka Tunggal Ika implemented into region. Even though we have the motto unity in diversity, but we have a challenge, of course. Challenge come from internal and external. But the most major challenge in Indonesia normally come from internal. There are two. I give the two examples for what we call the big major challenge. One is tribe. Indonesia has many tribes, but Java is the most populous people in Indonesia. They are the majority. So why is a so-called challenge? Because if they want to be separated from Indonesia, it is very easy. It is very easy because they are majority people. But because we have a motto, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, so Indonesian government try to do very, very hard to socialize Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, to protect that majority taken out of Indonesia. The second challenge is religion. As I mentioned before, Sikh religion in Indonesia, Muslim is the largest and the biggest. Now, some people or some Muslims try to take or to invite or to ask the same Muslim to do or to make what we call Islamic government or Islamic country. It is very, very challenging for Indonesia, so we try very hard as well to make them to be tolerant to each other. So what measures should be taken by the government? Indonesian government has pointed two institutional to implement Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. One is we call MPR.
Second largest is India.
Here we are. I'm sorry. One is we call MPR, People Consultative Assembly. Is one institution to be appointed by government to socialize Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. And then the second one is Pancasila Ideology Development Agency. Is an institution that has responsible to president with the task of assisting the president in formulating the policy of Pancasila ideology development, carrying out coordination, synchronization, and controlling Pancasila ideological guidance in a comprehensive as sustainable manner. So once again, the measures to be taken by Indonesian government is to implement we call smart power. Hard power implementation is to protect unity of Indonesia from internal threat or from some region to be separated from Indonesia. And soft power is socializing about Bhinneka Tunggal Ika to be a motto of Indonesia, to push Indonesian people to be tolerant, not egocentric. So conclusion for my presentation is diversity of tribe, ethnic, culture, and race and religion that exist in Indonesia become either opportunity or challenges. These challenges rise especially when Indonesia needs togetherness and unity in order to face with the dynamic of life in the society, nation, and state. Both from internal and external, nowadays we are facing and trying to solve, and the multidimensional crisis that has been going for a long time. Without the unity of the vision and mission of the entire of Indonesian people, it is impossible to get out from the crisis. The nation is built with a pillar of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which has led us to becoming a nation that growing up among another nation. Strategies to managing security and defense system of Indonesia are directed to safety guarding the Republic of Indonesia constitutional system based on spirit, soul, value, and four consensus that underline the founding of the Unitary Republic of Indonesia, which includes Pancasila, the 1945 Constitution of the Republic of Indonesia, keep up the unitary state of the Republic of Indonesia, and continue developing plurality and diversity with the principle of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Thank you very much.
The third presenter this afternoon is Professor Emeritus Gamini Keeravalla. He is the Executive Director of the Regional Center for Strategic Studies, which he took up in 2017. Prior to this, he was the Deputy Chief of Mission and later the Charge d'Affaires of the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Washington, D.C., USA. He is an internationally renowned scholar in Sri Lanka, a former head and professor in modern history at the University of Peradeniya. He worked as the Secretary, Ministry of Ethnic Affairs and National Integration and the Mineral Resource Development, and also the founder director of the National Integration Unit during the period 1997-2000. He was also an advisor to the President on ethnic affairs. His doctoral thesis was on the superpower of naval rivalry in the Indian Ocean. Professor Gamini Keeravalla is a recipient of many prestigious fellowships, including Fulbright, Japan Foundation, Senior Fulbright Fellow, and Senior Visiting Research Fellow at the University of Western Australia. Numerous publications, far too many for me to mention here, and numerous awards. The University of Peradeniya, recognizing his contribution, awarded him the Professor Emeritus from the University of Peradeniya. Over to you, Dr. Keeravalla.
The Professor Nayani Melegoda and fellow panelists, distinguished scholars, friends. 2 weeks back when Professor Amaljawardhana invited me to this seminar, I said that, it is too short. I don't have the ready-made presentations in my cupboard. Then he said, just talk about what you are doing. Then I thought, I have been working and reading on the national security and human security. Then I thought I will speak from my notes and share some views with you. First of all, I would like to thank the Vice Chancellor of Kotalawala Defence University and also Organization Committee of this conference to give me this opportunity to share my views with you. Having said that, I would like to come to my topic. National security is a critically important, constantly evolving, and characteristically amorphous concept. It is a handy rhetoric phrase for politicians, an ultimate policy objective for military, and a key analytical concept and field of study for social scientists. From the very conception of the state, security remains one of its main functions. It has been argued that the state, the supreme political institution that claims the exclusive right to sovereignty, came into existence mainly to fulfill security needs of the society. To Thomas Hobbes, security is the raison d'etre of the state. Accordingly, the state is the principal security provider. At the same time, security of the state is a critical precondition to discharge its security functions. Then what is really meant by national security? Broadly speaking, national security denotes the ability of a nation to protect its internal values and assets from external threats. It is an axiom that military is the tool of national security. In line with the evolution of the state, the concept of security and the role of military have also changed. The origins of the present concept of security can be traced back to the formation of modern sovereign states known as nation-state system. However, the present discourse of national security took its shape after 1945 in the Cold War context at the research and policy corridors of the United States. Accordingly, security of the state in an anarchic international environment was the focal concern of the national security. The only object of reference of national security is the state. Security was defined as the protection of territorial integrity and sovereignty vis-à-vis threats originated from external sources. Hence, security of the state depends on its power. Power is defined only in terms of military power. Hence, national security is nothing but the politico-military security of the state. Some profound changes or developments that took place in international and national spaces in the last quarter of the last century have compelled to revisit the traditional concept of national security. Disintegration of the Soviet Union has marked the end of post-war phase in international politics. The theoretical and analytical categories of national security developed in the Cold War context lost their earlier validity, and the inadequacy to understand security problems of non-Western societies became more and more evident with the passage of time. Resurgence of ethnicity in many parts of the world and the spread of ethnic conflict linked with secessionist state project practically question the very basis of modern nation-state system. The issue of how to reconfigure this concept of national security, not only to incorporate non-military security threats, but also to bring other references of security such as society and individual came to forefront in the changed global context. Challenge to conventional national security emerged from three directions. First, by presenting a report on common security, Farm Commission ignited the new discourse on security. Commission, having been firmly rooted in the social democratic tradition in Europe, first questioned the basics of prevailing national security analysis, especially its emphasis of military strategic superiority. Secondly, Peace Research School developed an alternative paradigm by bringing the social groups and individuals as units of analysis. The analytical frames developed by scholars such as Joanne Galton and Kenneth Baldwin had widened the disciplinary confines of security studies. Concept of structural violence and the categorization of negative and positive peace question the narrow military strategic perceptions of security. Thirdly, human security discourse that evolved in UN framework placed the concept of security in a different plane by reconfiguring security from human-centered perspective by bringing in a number of references of security and various dimensions. Then, main thrust of my presentation is that human security is not an alternative to national security. They are mutually reinforcing. The rejection of state is biased in traditional concept of national security does not mean that security of the state is not important. Security of the state is considered a very important prerequisite for other references of security. When the state is insecure, the entire society becomes insecure. Security of the state can be reconfigured from human security perspective to capture totality of security paradigm. Real issue here is how to configure the security of the state. Security of the state denotes something more than physical security of territory and its ruling class. On the one hand, the state is a legal abstraction. On the other, it has territorial basis and institutional framework of its own. Furthermore, idea of the state based on its organizational ideology constitutes an important element of the state. State is more an idea held in common by a group of people than is a physical mechanism. Therefore, Barry Busan identified 3 elements of security of the state: idea of the state, territory, and institutions and people. The idea of the state is the critical factor that establishes the legitimacy in the minds of its people. It binds territory with human and institutional base alone with the state. Idea of the state is the basis of the ideology of the state. The security of the state must be achieved first of all in political ideological plane. It is the ideology of the state that decides the way in which human base is organized and orientation of institutional frames of the state. Ideology of the state must cut across ethnic boundaries and political loyalties. It should not be changed in line with the entry and exit of governments and political leaders. Weak ideological basis of the state and its failure to unite all the people that reside within the boundaries of the state are the clear indication of a weak and insecure state. The key factor of legitimacy of the state domestically is the ability to present an ideology acceptable to all in the country. Then, when the weak ruling bloc failed to present a healthy ideology for the state that would unite all citizens cutting across ethnic divisions, then they need enemies of the motherland to rally people. Weak regimes see enemies of the state everywhere. Conspiracies against the state in every nook and corner. To them, the main task of the state is to identify and counter internal and external enemies who are waiting to destroy the country. Therefore, any means used to destroy and control these enemies is justified. Accordingly, there are only 2 types of citizens, patriotic and unpatriotic. This creates fear and suspicion and thereby narrows the range of public debate and democratic discourse. Then, it in itself becomes a national security issue. Other dimension of national security is the security of the institutional frames of the state. No state can survive solely with its ideological foundations. To be functional, any state needs a set of complex formal and informal institutions. Security of institutions of the states constitute key aspect of political security of the state. Political security does not necessarily mean the security of the regime in power. It is based on credible and strong institutional network. For that, the dignity of the bureaucracy need to be respected. The legitimate institutions of the state is destroyed mainly by direct political interferences to establish administrative procedures, not by external threats. The politicization of institutions makes the entire mechanism of the state insecure and it ultimately becomes an integral element of national insecurity. A strong state needs independent and strong institutions, which could not be manipulated by those in power. In this backdrop, the principle of good governance and the rule of law occupy the center of new discourse of national security. In reading national security in line with the new security discourse, we need to give due consideration to the human base as a unit of reference of security. When human base of the state is insecure, the entire state cannot be secure. It is necessary to bring other reference of security such as individual and collective identities along with the state to grasp national security in a broader analytical frame. Security of the individual cannot be overlooked at the expense of security of the state, as security of the individual ultimately insecurity of individual ultimately undermines security of the state itself. Recognition of the individual as a reference object of security has brought human rights into the national security agenda. Suppression of human rights in the name of national security leads to further breakdown of national security. Human security captures many aspects that are vital for survival of the people who remain outside the traditional security analysis. Human security and human development are closely related. Survival means protection from violence as well as from malnutrition, disease, and natural disasters. When reading it from insights of human security, the juxtaposition of security of the state with economic security is necessary. Idea of human security is closely related to two other equally important discourses of the day, namely human development and human rights. Underlying premise of human development is the progress must be fair, progress with equality. Human security emphasizes the complex relationship and often ignored linkages between good governance, human rights, and development. The focus of attention here is survival, livelihood, and dignity, and these three elements of human security are projected from point of view of the people. Traditionally, the national security concentrates on security of the state from external threats. Human security concentrates on the protection of individual and their economic survival and the recognition of ethnic and cultural heritage. This does not mean that human security simply ignored security of the state. The insights of human security could be employed to reconfigure state security more broadly and rationally in a different plane. Thus, human security and national security could be mutually reinforcing. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kiravalla, on this rereading national security from a human security perspective presentation. Next presentation is by Brigadier General Hamid Shafiq, PSC MS. Brigadier General Hamid is the Director General of Directorate of Operations and Training and Deputy Director General of National Counter-Terrorism Center of the Republic of Maldives. Brigadier General Hamid Shafiq was appointed as the Director General to the Directorate of Operations and Training in 2016 and Deputy Director General of National Counter-Terrorism Center in 2017. Brigadier General Hamid was trained at the Pakistan Military Academy, and he is also a graduate of Joint Command and Staff College in Kuwait, where he was awarded Masters in Military Science. He is a fellow of the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies and an alumnus of the Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies and also George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies. Among the various command, staff, and instructional appointment held by Brigadier General Hamid Shafiq include Commander of the Maldivian National Defense Force, MNDF Central Area, Commander of the MNDF Fire and Rescue Services, and also Deputy Commander of many others in the Maldives. In the light of his dedicated service, Brigadier General Hamid has received letters of commendation from the Maldivian National Defense Force and the defense leadership in the Maldives. He has been decorated with numerous medals and ribbons for his 26 years of service. Some of them are the Dedicated Service Medal, Defense Force Service Medal, Good Conduct Medal, Centenary Medal, SARC Medal, Presidential Ribbon, Special Service Ribbon, which he has achieved twice. Brigadier General Hamid will make his presentation on challenges of an island nation, the case of Maldives. Over to you.
Madam Chair, fellow panelists, and respected colleagues, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to stand before you today to deliver the presentation on this momentous gathering. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to KDU for the excellent arrangements and outstanding hospitality accorded to me. It is indeed always a delight to visit the beautiful country of Sri Lanka. Before delving into the details of the topic, the challenges of an island nation, the case of Maldives, let me briefly introduce my nation, Maldives. Most of you are aware that the Maldives is a tourist destination under the slogan of sunny side of life. However, these facts would highlight the truly unique island nation's characteristics of the country. It's located in the Indian Ocean, comprising of 1,190 islands and sandbank group of 26 atolls. It stretches across the length of approximately 800 kilometers and length and width of approximately 130 kilometers, around 200 inhabited islands and over more than 100 resorts islands. Islands have an average height of 1.8 meter above the sea level. Population is approximately 366,000. The total land area is 298 square kilometer. Moving on to the concept of the national security, the definition by the Professor Muhammad Ayub, which very aptly covers the span of the terms, as I quote, security or insecurity is defined in the relations of two vulnerabilities, both internal and external, that threaten to or have a potential to bring down the significant weakened state structure, both territorial and international. The eminent Professor Barry Buzan, in his book, The National Security in the Third World, the management of the internal and external threat, explains that the national security is a large Western concept, particularly an American post in 1945 terms. In the context, the concept was largely developed in the response to the need and condition of the particular group of the state. The most widely agreed definition of the nation's security is the protect and preservation of the core values of the nations. Although in the past 100 years, the dominant force of the international relations and the politics has been the nation state, the most wars were fought to create and expand such states. The future challenges and risk of international region is stability to nations without borders or to the global village seems as likely to come from the other factors, from the extremist diverse of the radical motivation connected with anger and hatred, coupled with terrorism, ethnic and religious conflict, competition for the scare of resources, environmental pressure, and also from the spread of drug and crime. Hence, arguments for the bordering the concept of the national security calls for the inclusion of the wide range of additions. It ranges from economic security to human security and ecological security to security of vital resources. Island nations' insecurity is more immediate, real, and pressing. Besides the precarious external security environment, equally devastating the inescapable domestic political fragility. Island nations' security problems are deemed to be much broader than the merely focusing on the external contexts, since the domestic internal situation can equally be threatened or core values, which, considering the national security equation of the small island developing the states such as Maldives, it is necessary to consider the security of its large maritime zone, addressing the issue of the such as poaching, drug trafficking, arms smuggling, piracy, and so forth. Hence, considering the extensive security of complication of small island states and identifying the general working definitions, the explanation of national security forward, the first pioneering report of the Commonwealth Consultative Group on small states draws the clear view, the absence of threat, capability of govern, protect, preserve, and advance the state and its people consist of with principles of respect to sovereignty and territorial integrity to the state. The traditional realist paradigm of the national security when it applied to small states such as Maldives seems to be far more problematic concept. Thus, there are arguments before bordering the concept of national security of a small state which calls for the inclusion of the wide range of other issues, such as range of the terrorism, religious extremism, public disorder, human rights violation, security of industries, ecological issues such as environmental degradation and natural disaster, and so on. The country's formation of the formal security force date back in 21st April 1820. This was the initiated by the Sultan Ibrahim Nuruddin Iskandar. The recent day major changes in the country's defense posture was 1st September 2004 when the policing function was separated, moved under the mandate of Ministry of Home Affairs. Hence, the national security was structured into the military force and renamed the Maldives National Defense Force in 21st April 2006. To give the strategic guidance, the Armed Forces, number of key documents came out in 2008, First Armed Force Act 2008, and the second document, it was instrumental changes set up for the Strategic Defense Directive, which broadly guideline of the decentralization force of the lays down of the joint operational philosophy of the force. It also established the Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and two main fighting components. MNDF comprises three main components: the ground elements organized by the Maritime Corps, Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard. It is naval element, while the MNDF support units are service support and the support of services. In addition to this, the Special Forces was established in the national strategic asset of the Ministry of Defense. The main concept was to institute the resource of efficient and organization which core characteristics of sustainability and deployability. One of the most notable changes of the MNDF recent was brought to the 4 operational commands across the country, that is the northern area, central area, southern area, and the Mali area. According to the unified action philosophy identified within the doctrine of the service of MNDF shall be provided in these regional areas under the joint operation approach. For the most part, terrorism in the Maldives context is the byproduct of the religious extremism. The root of extremism forces have already started incised into the fabric of the Maldivian society in the utmost concern of the national security. The incident on the Himandu Island and the IED explosion in the Sultan Park in Mali in 2007 has rung the serious alarm bells, highlighting the possible impact of the terrorism to the vital tourism sector. The Maldives is working closely partners with other countries through intelligence sharing and joint operation to counter these threats. There are growing concerns of the Maldives going abroad, Maldivians going abroad to participate in the armed religious conflict hotspots around the world. A key factors underway to closely monitor these cases and especially the risk posed those fighting with the return back to the country. The National Counterterrorism Center was established in 2016 under the Ministry of Defense and National Security to counter the threat posed by the terrorism and collaborate with the government organization, civil sectors, and our regional and international partners. More than 90% of the Maldivian territory is water. Hence, it is important to understand the threat challenges of the concern of the country's maritime domain. Protecting and safeguard of the national interests of the Maldives in its maritime domain have become far more challenging for the Maldivian National Defense Force. With the coastline approximately 868 kilometers and the enormous exclusive economic zone in the middle of the vital sea line of communication, it is vital to ensure the surveillance of the Maldivian territory to protect its interests and to secure the sea. The primary constraints for the security agencies are limited resources and capabilities of the face and challenge of the evolving maritime security environment in the Indian Ocean region. Fishing and tourism is the two main industries of the Maldives, contribute the mainstay of the economy and holds the major on the foreign currency earning. Hence, the protection of the preservation of these industries at the core of the countries of the nation's interest, ensuring the maritime law and are not violated and unauthorized persons do not plunder the wealth of the Maldives Sea are essentially viewed maritime security priorities. The Maldives Coast Guard ships have been regularly apprehending foreign fishing trawlers poaching in the EEZ. The Maldives, like the maritime neighborhood friends, also have a vital stake at the security and stability of the greater Indian Ocean region, particularly if one looks at it in the geostrategic point of view. The technological changes, geographical realities, economic globalization, shifting demographic, fragile environment, and finite resources are all impacting the strategic equation of the Indian Ocean region. Maldives would oppose any move to subject and displace the littoral state of the Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean is the home of the world's most important sea line of communication, which half of the global trade and one of the third of oil trade passing through it. Maldives is actively engaged in ensuring the safety and security of the Indian Ocean through numerous bilateral and multilateral engagements with neighboring countries, including joint surveillance programs and training exercises. The issue of maritime piracy and concern around the Somalia western region of ocean and Gulf of Aden region and growing on its sophistications and reach is a main concern to the nations like Maldives. The vast water and scattered islands of the Maldives greatly amplifies the risk from the pirate groups. Efforts are being undertaken towards ensuring the better surveillance through establishment of radar system and maritime patrols. Arms, narcotics, and human trafficking in the Indian Ocean region is estimated to be on the increase and posing the risk the peace and security of the countries in the region. Indication of particularly the note of 1.6 tons of narcotics discovered stashed in a lagoon in the Maldives during 2006. Confrontation with an arms trafficking vessels within the Maldives territory in 2007. Vessels ran ground on a reef in the north of Maldives was found to be the smuggling of large quantity of drugs in 2018, this year. For the nation that predominantly survived through its earning from the tourism and fisheries, incidents of such nature are matter of serious national concerns. After looking at the national security of the small island states and the main host of the threat of challenges facing, I would like to cap off with the primary limitations that are concerned with the comes of effective dealing with it. Lack of resources, equipment, and infrastructure. This challenges to all the countries irrespective of its size. However, when it comes to small island states like Maldives, the problem is further exacerbated given its respectively vast geographically and limited resources. The next limitation is capacity development of personnel and expertise, widely spread of small population concentrations, impact of international and regional instability. Globalization have resulted the highly interconnected world, reducing the boundaries of the traditional Maldives with its economy highly reliant on tourism industry is greatly a risk from the global or regional instability. To wrap up the presentation, I will summarize to its following points. National security is the context of small island states far more problematic concept. Small islands of states securing the threat challenges far broader than the external context. Issue of we face range from terrorism, religious extremism, public disorder, human rights violations, security of industries, ecological issues such as environmental degradation and natural disasters, and so on. Challenges faced on the effectively countering these threats are further magnified due to the nature of the characteristics of island nation of the Maldives. Coming to the conclusion, I hope that within this short period, I have been able to provide you an insight into the case of Maldives and its challenges as an island nation. Thank you all for your keen attention, and I wish you all the pleasant day ahead.
The final presentation this afternoon will be by Major General Dato Abdul Rahim bin Haj Mohammad Yusuf. Major General Abdul Rahim is a retired armed forces officer who has served the Malaysian Armed Forces for 39 years. His last appointment was as the Inspector General of Malaysian Armed Forces at the Malaysian Armed Forces Headquarters. Major General Abdul Rahim was commissioned into Royal Malay Regiment of the Malaysian Army upon graduating from the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, UK. Throughout his career, Major General Abdul Rahim has held various appointments at training institutions, formations at headquarters level. Among the notable appointments was the commanding officer of the 20th Battalion Royal Malay Regiment. At international level, Major General Abdul Rahim has worked at the United Nations headquarters in New York, dealing with the United Nations missions all over the world, where he briefed the UN Secretary General and the Under Secretary General of the Department of Peacekeeping Operations on mission status and operational level situational awareness. Due to his expertise in operations and peacekeeping situation, Major General Rahim was appointed as the head of mission for the International Monitoring Team in Mindanao, Philippines in 2012, where he was instrumental in monitoring the peace agreement between the Philippine Armed Forces and the Moro National Liberation Force. For this work in the Philippines, he is frequently called upon to participate in international level peace seminars, discussions, etc. For his service to the country, Major General Abdul Rahim was conferred with numerous awards and medals. The notables are the awards conferred by His Royal Highness the Sultan of Kedah and His Royal Highness Sultan of Jahan. Presently, Major General Abdul Rahim is the first holder of the leadership chair at the National Defence University of Malaysia. He is responsible for research and analysis of current, past and future leadership theories and issues. May I now invite Major General Abdul Rahim to make his presentation on defense, security and peace, the Malaysian experience.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the kind introduction. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the university for inviting me to give my perspective of what Malaysia's defense and security and peace. So what I will do is I will go and describing how Malaysia looks at defense and security, what are the factors that influence Malaysia's perception of security and defense and security, what are our past threats to national security? What are our present and future threats to national security? And lastly, I will conclude by looking at the way forward. What do we do, or what are the things that we need to do to safeguard our national security? Okay, the ASEAN region has experienced political stability and economic growth, but non-conventional security issues are beginning to shape and influence the nature of threats to Malaysia's national defense and security. Globalization has also linked Malaysia in a complex and unpredictable way, where local and international events have important impact on how we view national security. Now, in as far as how Malaysia looks at defense and security, we are influenced by three factors. The first one is the structural factors or our geographical location. Secondly is our historical perspective. And lastly are the issues driven in national security. Now, looking at the structural element, for your information, Malaysia consists of two parts. One is Peninsular Malaysia, which is basically this part here. And next we have East Malaysia, which is on the island of Kalimantan. And Malaysia is separated by the South China Sea, and it is also astride two very important waterways. One is the Malacca Strait, and secondly the South China Sea, which basically is an international route that we have part control over the Malacca Strait. Now, population-wise, we are about 32 million people, and we have land borders with Indonesia, Thailand, and also Brunei. Now, the location of Malaysia is where our national resources are, our oil, gas, and fisheries, which constitute about 12% of our gross domestic product. So by nature of our location in the center of Southeast Asia, with all the competing elements, national security is also an important element. And our unique geographical location has meant that it had to be vigilant at all times towards both external, but more importantly, internal threats to Malaysia's security. Next, we'll just look at the historical perspective. Now, Malaysia's security and strategic posture has been one based on threat of communism. We have faced two, we call the emergencies, the communist insurgency in Malaysia through two phases. One in 1948, and the next one was in 1968. We went through two communist-inspired insurgency. Now, the first emergency was declared in 1948 when communist-inspired attacks, political insurrection, and overall mayhem threatened economic, political, and security stability. Through the efforts, through the whole government effort and through the efforts of the Malaysian security forces, we managed to overcome the communist insurgency in 1960. However, in 1968, there was a second emergency declared when the Communist Party of Malaya reignited the racial disharmony, political subversion, and economic stability. It, however, ended in 1989 when the Communist Party of Malaya surrendered under the Hat Yai Agreement in Thailand. Now, we were one of the only countries that has managed to overcome a communist-inspired insurrection. And how do we do this? How we do this is not by pouring in more troops into the jungle, but in the hearts and minds of the people. We try to win the hearts and minds of the population by promoting not only military and political advances, but also social welfare as well. The hearts and mind was transformed and linked towards security and development
with nation building under what we term as the KESPAN, or which is Keselamatan and Pembangunan, or security and development. We link the operations against communist insurgency through security and development. We ensure that there is security, and with it we bring in development in order to win the hearts and minds of the local population. Now, it also focuses on the sum total of all measures undertaken by the government agencies to protect society from subversion, lawlessness and insurgency. That has been the hallmark of the Malaysian operations against communist insurgencies in 1948 and also in 1968. As I've said, it was designed to cut off the communist supply chain, and security forces dealt with the communist insurgency through well-planned strikes and search and destroy operations. The communist affected areas and communities were rehabilitated and included in various government programs to improve their quality of life. The strategy that was employed by the Malaysian government was also copied during the Vietnam, in Vietnam, and also in some parts of Afghanistan. However, up to now, it is not as successful as what it has been successful in Malaysia. Okay, the third element that influences the way we look at social security and stability is the political and social variables. The case of national integration and societal cohesion, politicization of race and religion, spillover effect of neighboring countries, political and economic crisis, and religious fundamentalism has got an impact on our national security and stability. Now I will go quickly to our present and future security challenges. What are our security challenges to Malaysia at the present moment? In as far as traditional threat to Malaysia, there are traditional threats, but it is manageable in the sense that the overlapping claims and also crisis between neighboring countries, it is manageable through the process, the diplomatic process that we have. The main threat to Malaysia at the present moment is the non-traditional threat to security. Now, increasingly in a borderless world, human trafficking, terrorism, and money laundering are interlinked with drug and arms smuggling, cybercrime, as well as online share trading. These, in turn, are related to the movement of people, tourists, students, merchants, and like. Hence, globalization acts as a fulcrum holding these bonds, and the international community needs to formulate a new perspective to appreciate these linkages. Now, the most important threat to our national security is terrorism. We have been faced with a couple of terrorist activities in Malaysia, and terrorist attacks are, as I said, the most challenging non-traditional security threat. It is a serious challenge to the fundamental ethos of which Malaysia and how Malaysia deals with this threat demands us to think outside of the box. Now, it also demands a whole government approach involving not only a multitude of agencies, but the multilateral participation of many governments to eliminate or reduce the possibility of terrorist organization establishing operating bases across the border. So terrorism is one of the most important challenges to Malaysia's national security. Secondly is globalization. Globalization also poses a threat to us. In a changing global structure has added another pressures to Malaysia's political and economic security dimension and has affected Malaysia's actual and perceived threats. Now, politically, Malaysia is still fragile, and economically, the country is susceptible to a fluid international environment. And globalization could lead to increasing feeling of insecurity amongst Malaysian population as the result of perceived inability of the state to deal with the threat effectively. Next is one of the most important threat to to Malaysia is national, not utility, but national unity. Malaysia consists of various races. We have got the major race being Malays, we've got the Chinese, we've got the Indians, we've got many other races. and to create a nation state which have all the races together as Malaysian is one of the most important challenges to us. National unity has always been an internal threat to us that, if it is not managed well, will result in instability in the country. One clear example was in 1969, there was a major racial insurrection, and many people were killed, and the country was at the verge of breaking up, and we had to declare an emergency to rectify the problem. So therefore, national unity is an important element towards Malaysia's national security. Next is another threat to Malaysia's security is immigration. We have got the influx of migrants, particularly the illegal one, has become one of the major security concerns. According to our statistics, in 2016, there were about 2.8 million immigrants in Malaysia, working in Malaysia, of which 1.5 million are legal, and the other 1.3 are illegal immigrations. These are the ones that threatens our national security. And of course, the next is environmental issues. Another new but major concern to Malaysia's national security is environmental issues that covers not only environment but also security aspects of health, drug trafficking, refugees, and others. Issues of environmental degradation, in particular, have been given a serious thought by the Malaysian political leaders, which could produce multiple effects on Malaysian socio-economy, such as a sudden rise of medical bill due to increasing numbers of asthmatic patients and the loss of revenue due to lower arrival of tourists in the country. Environmental issues is another aspect that could threaten our national security. And next is transnational crime. Another dimension of security to Malaysia's security is transnational organized crime, such as drug and small arms smuggling and human trafficking, which has become a major security concern. Now, how do we manage this issue? Those are the threats that are present in Malaysia. How do we manage? What are the things that we do? We have used ASEAN as a primary platform for regional cooperation, and it is a strong and successful ASEAN that is not only an economic necessity, but a stabilizing influence, but also a strategic imperative. We view ASEAN as a platform for regional cooperation, and we want ASEAN to be strong economically and also as a strategic imperative. Now, we also conduct defense diplomacy. As a defense diplomacy has long been a mainstay to Malaysia's defense posture. The notion that the armed forces of nations have the ability to contribute to international security, not only by the use of force, but also by promoting a more cooperative international environment. Malaysia looks at defense diplomacy not as an alternative to the more traditional role of the armed forces, but supplements it by a host of other activities that contribute to the prevention of conflict by building and maintaining trust. Okay, I'll go very fast. Next, we go on regional and global engagement. Malaysia's foreign policy has consistently sought to pursue its national interests based on the principle of humanity, justice, and equality. We are also blessed with strong leadership. Malaysia has been, for the past 61 years, where leadership is the use of political power to bring society up to achieve values we hold dear, and not to manipulate societal values to achieve personal powers. Okay, in conclusion, since 1961, after 61 years of independence, Malaysia has been blessed with a relative peace and harmony. Present and future threats will always remain, although they may take a different form and from a different source. And we will continue with the numerous engagement and transnational cooperation in meeting the new security challenges, cooperation in the region, and beyond. With that, I thank you very much for your kind attention.
This has been a truly Asian session where we shared the aspects of security challenges, experiences, solutions from South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Far East. The presenters also did a great job because this is the toughest session after lunch, after a grand lunch at KDU. And the audience has been great, alert, and awake. So now we open the floor for Q&A. Can I begin the questions and answers, first asking a question from the first presenter on reconciliation between two Koreas. Could you briefly state the moon strategies, the specific strategies for reconciliation between the two Koreas? That is for Professor Kim.
It's quite tough, though. Specific strategy.
Yeah.
Specific strategy. Actually, we are based on some kind of functionalism. Our policy basically based on the functionalism. I mean, we want to have increase the exchanges and cooperations, and then after doing those things, once we realize that we reach certain point of the point in which we can have a trust, then we can pursue the more politically oriented, integration. So that's so-called functionalism. So that's our basic nationally agreed consensus on how to achieve a unification and improve intercorean relations. That's our strategy. It's been almost 30 years. So regardless of the ideological line of the administrations, even the conservatives or liberals, both agreed on that kind of approaches. So, but the pace, how fast we will try, there is slight differences. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Questions from the floor?
Yeah, I have a question for Professor Kim. It's about one of the main concern in East Asia is South China Sea. The issues on South China Sea with China and other regional countries. And on the other side, we see a green light on North Korea and South Korea. In this, on both the sessions, China is playing a bigger role. So, do you think the conflict in South China Sea could have some effect on this ongoing process on North Korea and South Korea?
Yes, of course. It's not directly interconnected, but the role of China is very important. As you may know, actually before the summit between the Trump and the Kim Jong-un, actually there was two summit meetings between Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un. So especially the second meeting, Xi Jinping gives some kind of caution even, because Chairman Kim Jong-un goes too far from the Chinese, then he's going to be in trouble. I think it's that kind of message has been directly sent to the Kim Jong-un. So the role of China is very important, and also currently the trade war between China and Trump, that also affects the progress of the current negotiation. So that's another factor. Having said that, maybe more closer to your concern about the South China Sea, I think that basically we all have to acknowledge the increased power of China. Once a country, like especially the great power like China, became more powerful, they naturally can involve more things. That means they can interact more countries in more areas. Then it can cause more, the frictions, things like that. So at least we have to acknowledge the increased power of China. But China also has to realize that they also have the responsibility as a responsible that's a great power. In order to be treated like a great power, responsible great power, they have to act like great power. So, okay, we also have to, take into consideration of their increased power, but the way we take into consideration of the, what we adjust to grown power of China, they have to behave, responsibly. So they have to consult with us, others, not with us, other, countries, and also they have to cooperate, consult, and negotiate, to change the existing orders to more appropriate to their, growing, increased power. So that's my point. So, but these days, you already know the norm-based order, and we don't like the change of status quo by force. We don't like it. So the way China may have been doing is not comfortable with us either in South Korea. I'm not, telling you our government position, but most of South Koreans also say feel the same way, I think. Is it answer to you enough?
Any other questions? Or we are running out of time. Okay, we will ask the lady first and the gentleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The quick questions, a couple of quick questions for the panel. To Professor Kim, you spoke about the two nations, the prospect and the process. The process, thank you very much, it was very well elaborated. But as to the prospect, yes, we could look at it positively, but what exact prospect do you see as a researcher currently for the two states? To AVM Dr. Kustana, at the final stage of your presentation that you said that diversity not only as a challenge but as an opportunity. We well understood as to how it has been a challenge to Indonesia over the past few decades. But how are you using it as an opportunity? Because you'll be able to learn from it if you kindly could elaborate, please. To Professor Kiravella, at one point of your presentation you said there are two segments as the patriot and the non-patriot. I would like to suggest that there's a third group called the neutral patriot, or either patriot, neither patriot nor non-patriot. So how are you looking at that from this human security perspective? To Brigadier General Hamid, my friend, as to very well good elaboration on the case of Maldives as an island nation. We got a very good idea about Maldives. However, how is it, the challenges that you very well described, how are they specific to an island nation, or Sri Lanka being an island nation, it has the same challenges. So, or say Pakistan being a landlocked nation, it has the same challenges. So, particularly as an island nation, what specific challenges would Maldives have? Finally, to General Rahim, in the Malaysian perspective, two things. One, as Malaysia being central, so have to be careful of the external influencers. On the other hand, I think the entire region also has to be careful, Malaysia being in the center. And so that is like looking at it from the other side. And also, one success story was not to pour out armed forces into the jungle. In your presentation you said, but to make attitudinal changes in the masses, which was wonderful. However, in the region we have had difficulties in many countries post-conflict, that attitudinal changes are very difficult to do. So sometimes pouring armed forces in the jungles is sometimes a solution, at least in the short term of 1 to 2 decades. So would like to know more about the success story of Malaysia in attitudinal changes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and we'll take the other question also, then I can get everybody to respond to these questions.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Major General Vijendra, now retired. My question is, we have been talking all day about collaboration and non-traditional military threats. Now, a question arose, I think, in the last session that the forces are sometimes not trained and equipped to handle non-traditional military threats. In your opinion, do you think if we concentrate much on the non-traditional threats, that it would dilute the capability of the military to deal with traditional threats when it comes to training, when it comes to equipment, etc.? Any ideas on that?
Thank you very much. May I invite Major General Abdul Rahim to respond first? 1 minute.
Thank you very much for the question. And when I talk about not the problems of solving the problems of communism is not by pouring troops into the jungle, I'm specifically alluding to the fight against terrorism or against communist insurgency. Basically, the root cause of why the communist insurgency happens in Malaya was the one that we wanted to solve. Solving the root cause of the problem is much more important than by pouring in more troops to the jungle. So that was the strategy that was, in fact, played out by the Malaysian government then. And it proved to be a successful one, where we went right to the root cause of the problem. We win the heart and mind of the population, and then we build a community, give them development in their community. Therefore, it separates the population from the communist insurgency. Of course, in a more traditional form, if you are talking about conventional warfare against conventional forces, of course, troops needs to be employed in the correct strategical way. And coming back to, sir, your question on whether the armed forces role will be sort of the role against the traditional role of the armed forces. In as far as the Malaysian armed forces are concerned, by going against non-traditional threat, it is not the primary task of the Malaysian armed forces. It is the task of the other internal security forces. The Malaysian armed forces will continue to be trained, equipped to deal with the traditional threat to national security. However, we do support the other internal forces in combating non-traditional threat. That is as far as the Malaysian armed forces is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Brigadier General Hamid Shafiq, please.
Madam, the specific challenges which the Maldives face, as you mentioned, we face as a Sri Lanka is an island nation. We share the common challenges, but to be the specific, the growing terrorism in the Middle East, in the South Asia, which has the spillover effect on the Maldives, especially the extremism and radicalization. These are the two areas which has a specifically which impact the national security of the Maldives. This is what I would highlight on these 2 points. Thank you. I hope I have answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Kiravella.
First, regarding the division of the division of citizens in line with patriotic and non-patriotic is basically outcome or outcome of activity of weak regime. Weak, threatened, and PC regime, divide its own citizen into 2 categories in order to rally certain section behind their political agenda. I think that is a security problem because weak regime, weak and BC regime itself a national security problem because they use institutions of state for their political purpose. Then the institutions very unique institutions of the state are used for political the use, then institutions lose their legitimacy and credibility. That will become in turn a national security problem. Then non-traditional security threats can be handled by other state institutions, but military also can play a role. There should be very close coordination between other institutions and military institutions. Then in the present situation, in the present context, we need to professionally develop our military daily in order to meet the challenges. Therefore, main task is traditional of the military is to take care of traditional the security threats. In addition to that, they should be trained professionally to support other institutions who are carrying out non-traditional security threats.
Thank you. Air Vice Marshal Dr. Tatan, Kustana.
Yes, thank you very much for your very hard question. I try to answer that question. Well, diversity in tribes, cultures, languages, and religion, of course, it could be opportunities and also challenges. But we do believe, Indonesian people do believe it could be opportunities, because Indonesia has a lot of natural resources and a lot of people, that people could be a human capital, so we can develop them to be in the positive thinking. And what we need is, I think, is to be opportunities to have a strong leadership, to have a strong leader who has high commitment, to manage the big Indonesia to be developed in the future. I think we do believe that diversity is not challenges, but opportunities for us. I think that's my answer. Thank you very much.
The prospect, the answer, the simple answer is I'm still at home. Because it's less promising as it used to be about May or June. But still, I think it's we have home. Actually, the majority of people in Korea and also in America is very skeptical, and still they do. Was and still do. But actually, I was surprised when I was one of the more skeptical view persons. But when I saw the meeting and the content of the agreement between the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in, I was very surprised. So I saw the chance, the possibility. But I was very disappointed at the Singapore meeting. They could have done more. But after that, my hope is a little bit, reduced. But still, as I said, I have cautiously optimistic. The main reason is Kim Jong-un is too young. He thinks he has to reign his country for the rest of 40 or 50 years, right? So he doesn't want to see his country remain as economically lagged and diplomatically isolated. 40 years, 50 years is too long. He knows what's going on outside, how well connected. So he wanted to be intact with other leaders. He wanted to be, he wanted to see his country developing, right? So, and because he's young, so I think he take a risk. So I think that's made me think we still have hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This session has been truly educational, starting with reconciliation efforts, a case study from Korea, the local context in security, Indonesia, then human security, a very important aspect, as we are into Agenda 2030, achieving targets, etc. And concerns of literal states, we are a literal state, land of smiling people, or called the share the experience of sunny side of life, and also the experiences of the Malaysian experience in defense and security and peace, the ASEAN community contribution, the success story of the Southeast Asian Regional Cooperation. Thank you very much, all of you, and on behalf of the panelists, I wish to thank the Vice Chancellor and the Dean of the Faculty of the Kustana Defense University, Professor Amajayavardhanan, and colleagues in the Department of International Relations and Strategic Studies. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite Major General J.E.T. Vijayendra to present certificates and token of appreciation to the speakers of the session. Professor Young Ho Kim, Air Vice Marshal Dr. Tatan Kustana, Professor Emeritus Nayani Kiravella, Brigadier General Hamid Shafiq, Major General Dr. Abdul Rahim bin Haji Mahmood Yusuf, Now it's time to present token of appreciation to the Chairperson, Professor Nayani Melegoda, Dean, Faculty of Graduate Studies, University of Colombo. Thank you, sir. With that, we have come to the end of the second plenary session of the Defense and Strategic Studies. I kindly request all of you to join for the refreshments. All the VIP guests will be served on the first floor and the others will be served on the third floor. Thank you and have a nice day.